allow me to say صباح الخير. شكرا جزيلا لوجودك معنا اليوم. I probably completely mispronounced everything. So I'm going to say Kalimera and και καλώς ήρθατε. So hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. A very warm welcome to our speakers, to our panelists, and a very warm welcome also to the friends and colleagues in the attendees list as well. So thank you so much. Very, very happy that we're here and having this session during the Cairo Water Week. My name is Anthi Bruma. I'm the Deputy Regional Coordinator and Diversity Team Leader at the Global Water Partnership Mediterranean. And together with my colleague engineer Natasha Karmi from the Geneva Water Hub, we are going to be the co-leaders of the session and the co-conveners of the session. Of course, and we should notice, and you will see fully the line of work that we have done together with four most inspiring and competent women from the MENA region. Let me start maybe saying a little bit why, how, and all the usual questions. Well, for those that do not know us, GWP Med is the Mediterranean branch of a global action network that works with more than 3,000 partner organizations in 178 countries around the world for a water-secure world. And through this triptych of we act, we mobilize, we learn, we are implementing our current global strategy, 2020-2025, and working together towards gender equality is one of the horizontal anchor themes and is part of our core values. So this is the why. And we believe very firmly that through a gender transformative approach, we can achieve gender equality for properly safeguarding and managing water resources for future generations. So there is a very clear priority on gender in our work. And this is supported also through a dedicated gender strategy and an action plan that we have developed on gender equality and inclusion in water resources management. At the same time, transboundary water cooperation represents a programmatic agenda and a core activity theme for us for nearly 20 years now. So the close linkages and multiple benefits from linking water, gender, and cooperation within and across countries is well understood, although not fully utilized yet. So this is the line of work that we will discuss today, and this links very, very well with the objectives. And it also explains why we are engaged and fully committed as GWP Med in this line of work. Very, very excited to be working together, collaborating with the Geneva Water Hub and personally with engineer Natasha Karmi. And as I mentioned, we have been working closely with four amazing, most prominent and achieved women from the MENA region that you will get to know a little bit better. Dr. Tahani Mustafa Silit, Ms. May Al-Sayed, Ms. Maysoon Zubi, and Ms. Sharafat Failan. We're a team, and this is how we actually lead and continue this line of work. Before we get too much into, we get actually into the presentation of the line of work we've been doing. Natasha, why don't I just stop here and ask you to share with us why? You know, you are involved in this process and where we aim to go.
Thank you, Anthi. And by the way, your Arabic, was quite impressive. So at my end as well, my name is Natasha Karmi. I'm the lead water specialist with the Geneva Water Hub. So if anyone, from the attendees also, is coming from the French part of the world, bienvenue à tous et toutes. Merci pour nous rejoindre. To answer to Anthi's question, why the Geneva Water Hub and why are we engaged in this? My personal engagement with this started before joining the Geneva Water Hub, and we will be presenting basically the initiative that is based on the first mapping that was conducted with my two other colleagues on a personal capacity. But why the Geneva Water Hub? Again, for those of you who don't know us at the Geneva Water Hub, we're actually a center of excellence of the University of Geneva, which is specialized in hydrodiplomacy. And the Geneva Water Hub is the secretariat of the Global High-Level Panel on Water and Peace that was launched in 2015. And based on the work of the panel that produced its recommendations in a report in 2017 entitled A Matter of Survival, these proposals and recommendations were meant to encourage the adoption and the use of water as a vehicle of peace in the global water architecture. So within that, that track and within the work that we continue to do towards the implementation of the recommendations of the panel, obviously it would be very challenging to promote and even to endorse 21st century preventive, inclusive water diplomacy without the inclusion of women. Therefore, we gladly, collaborated with GWP Med and with ANTHI on the issue of taking this forward collectively, given that it is also part of our work to integrate the role of women in the implementation of the recommendations of the panel. So back to you, ANTHI.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Natasha. I think that we can actually start right ahead. The objective of this 1 hour and a half session, and we're extremely delighted that we can do this in the framework of the third Cairo Water Week. So thank you very much for the hospitality, even remotely, to the Cairo Water Week organizing committee and to the Egyptian government. The objective is to have two segments, if you like. In the first segment, we would like to present to you in a little bit more detail, and actually for the first time, the context and the findings of this comparative study that was conducted by the team. And after sharing these findings with you, to be able to hear from a panel of esteemed and distinguished speakers, whom we aim to have as strategic partners in this effort, to hear from them some reflections on the work that is going to be presented, and also on suggestions how we can synergize, how we can work together in order to take things forth. So the first segment of the session is going to involve a presentation. I'm going to be sharing my screen, so you will be able to see the different slides, and then we're going to be sharing it with the other team members. We do work as a team. This is a prerequisite. This is fundamental for us. So you will see this later on. Allow me to share my screen so we can actually start. Please let me know if you do, if you can see it.
Yes, we can see it, Auntie.
I'm trying to put it on a slideshow. Okay, is it working? Is it okay?
Yeah,
I
can see it.
You can see it well. Okay, very good. All right, thank you. So we're going to be talking to you about strengthening the role of women in water diplomacy in the Middle East and North Africa region. Why are we talking about water diplomacy? Why are we putting together, sorry, let me just put this away. And why are we putting together in the same sentence women, water, and diplomacy? As Natasha touched upon, there is a global recognition of the role of preventive diplomacy in mitigating and also limiting the escalation of disputes. And water diplomacy is a specialized form of such type of diplomacy. There have been several moves that show and support this direction. The most recent one In 2017, the UN Security Council held a briefing on preventive diplomacy and transboundary waters, emphasizing the role of water diplomacy and cooperation in conflict prevention. So quite explicit and to the point. 4 years earlier, in 2013, the EU Foreign Affairs Council adopted the new conclusions of the EU water diplomacy, making the case for linking water, security and peace, including the potential of water as an instrument for peace. At the same time, and of course preceding these, we have 2 global water conventions talking about the issue. And several other actions, like the launch of the Global High-Level Panel on Water and Peace in 2015, and a Matter of Survival report in 2017 that Natasha also mentioned, convening of the High-Level Panel on Water in 2016, and a landmark United Nations Security Council resolution, number 1325, on women, peace and security, that was adopted in 2000 as the first international policy mechanism explicitly recognizing the gendered nature of war and peace processes. This landmark UN Security Council resolution is going to have its birthday in a few days of closing 20 years. So how did this initiative that we're talking about came into existence? First of all, we need to clarify that this is primarily and foremost a professional encounter and development of trust, sharing of experiences and sharing common challenges. And there is a drive, expressing a drive for action of women as agents of change. This all started back in 2017. At the personal initiative of Natasha Karmi, with contact with Maysoon Zubi and May Al-Sayed. So there was this first mapping exercise that took place in 2017 in the 3 countries, in Jordan, Lebanon, and Palestine. The first presentation of these results was done a year later in a symposium organized by UNESCO and UNDESA in Beirut. This symposium was on women and water security for peace building in the Arab region. And soon afterwards, there was a publication of this article in the special issue of the Journal of Hydrology on Water Diplomacy with the support of CWW. This is the background. And then in early spring 2020, actually while discussing different types of collaboration and, at a personal level between Natasha and myself, there was this collaboration that formally started between the Geneva Water Hub and GWP Med, aiming to support the role of women in water diplomacy with emphasis in our region and concerning 2 things. The first was to review and update the work that was done initially in the 3 countries. And secondly, to expand this mapping to the Maghreb region by including the cases of Egypt and Morocco. This, there was a technical work involved with the support of the team, and culminated into presenting the first findings in this consultative workshop that involved the respondents of the questionnaires in July, at the end of July, actually, 2020, so a few months back. What is our collective approach in this initiative? We recognize the social, political, and institutional challenges to women's advancements in water diplomacy-related fields globally and within the MENA region. And we emphasize that it is important for all members of society to support women empowerment. And we believe that acquiring the skills needed for a good water diplomat would provide the opportunities for the attainment of decision-making positions in water diplomacy and water cooperation settings. The intention is not to provide a statistical study or a quantitative study, but to provide an indicative understanding of challenges faced and opportunities that are available. So what has been our methodology? As mentioned before, it builds upon a basic mapping exercise that was undertaken 3 years back in Jordan, Lebanon, and Palestine. This involved a short questionnaire that was developed in order to map the main challenges that women face and hold them back from having a more major role as women in water diplomacy and decision-making positions. The total number of questions in this short questionnaire was 19, hence the short. 12 of them were closed, 2 of them were open, and the rest were a combination of the two ways. The questionnaire was designed to provide specific insights into 4 main issues. Namely, the current status of women in the water sector in their respective countries, the main bottlenecks or factors holding them back, their perceptions on the role of water diplomacy, and linkages between Sustainable Development Goals 6 and 5 in their daily work realm. For the purposes of the comparative study and concerning the countries that were, on which all the work is based, in Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine, there were 4 questions that were sent to the women who had responded to the first questionnaire, and of course, upon which the mapping was based, in order to provide an update of where they stand 3 years later. These questions were the following. Since filling the questionnaire, have you changed your position? Have you been promoted? Have there been changes in the institutions or departments? Have you received any further training or skill development? Are you more familiar and more exposed in your line of work today to global frameworks such as the SDGs? What do you think is still lacking in the area of empowerment of women in water diplomacy? So this was more targeting the 3 countries, while for the cases of Egypt and Morocco, the full-scale questionnaire was used. The results of the questionnaire were analyzed either using SPSS, the statistical package for the social sciences, or Excel, in some cases the one, some cases the other. In all countries, particular attention was on selecting female representatives of all actors involved in the water sector. Therefore, government, authorities at different levels, utilities, private sector, academia, NGOs, elected women, and in the case of Morocco, also female farmers. The selection of the respondents was based primarily on the experience of the author in her country, utilizing also professional networks and aiming to be as representative of the water sector spectrum as possible. Overall, a total of 93 female water experts took part in these mapping exercises in the 5 countries. So the study, the result of this technical work involves different sections. There is a basic baseline review for each of the 5 countries based on the responses of the female water experts to the questionnaires that participated in that. And then there is a comparative analysis of the main areas that the questionnaire was formulated to ascertain to identify commonalities and specificities of skills needed. The study concludes with a section outlining or identifying, if you like, what are the key elements, the key characteristics of a good water diplomat. So the draft of the technical work that was produced by the team, it was shared in this closed consultation workshop at the end of July with the purpose to demystify the role of women in water diplomacy and promote action in order to strengthen it. That involved 70 participants from the MENA region. The vast majority of them were women and representing, government institutions, civil society organizations, private sector, and academia. And these were all, the participants were all respondents of the questionnaire. And what was done in this workshop? We discussed the key findings of the comparative study and the next steps. And effectively, we launched this initiative and we set the ground for the initiation of a community of practice among those women working in water diplomacy across the MENA region. Without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to my colleagues so we can start sharing with you the findings of this technical work and start first with the country baselines and then share with you highlights from the comparison across the countries. So the floor is yours, Tahani, to share with us the country baseline from Egypt.
Thank you, Auntie, and thank you for the presentation. I'm very happy and delighted that we are presenting this in the Cairo Water Week, and I hope that each Cairo Water Week we will have some advancements and some achievements to do. First of all, we need to know that a lot have been done for women empowerment in Egypt. Actually, in the year 2000, the National Council for Women was established, and in the Constitution of 2014, there is the Article 11 was specialized for women, because it stated that the state shall ensure the achievement of equality between women and men in all civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights until the end of the article. In the year 2016, the last configuration of the National Council for Women was updated to include the young and rural women, as well as the experts in women's affairs and development. And by that, the Council for Women is covering almost all the spectrum of the women in the Egyptian society. The president have identified the year 2017 as the year of Egyptian women. And the National Women Strategy 2030 was announced, aligning with the SDGs and based on 4 main pillars, which are the political empowerment, the leadership promotion, economic empowerment, social empowerment, protection, and legislation and culture as cross-cutting pillars. According to the National Council for Women statistics, we have 54 girls represented in the university as university students, and 56% of masters and PhD holders. The women ministers increased from 6% in 2015 to 25% in 2018. And currently we have 8 female ministers out of 32 ministers in the cabinet. According to these statistics as well, the women in the Egyptian parliament increased from 2% to 15% in 2018, and the recent constitutional amendments in 2019 mandated a 25% quota for women. The judges are about 430 judges. 6 of them were appointed as deputies to the president of Egyptian State Lawsuit Authority, and 66 were appointed in the Egyptian courts. 48% and even more of the university professors are women, deputy ministers 27%, deputy governors are 31%. So the women are well represented in the society. Now, when we link this representation with water diplomacy, actually, I'll try to be very brief in presenting Egypt's situation in regard to its hydrological situation, because Egypt is one of the world's most arid countries in the world, and it faces multiple challenges since it's depending almost totally on water from outside its border. And we have about 21 billion cubic meter per year gap between the available resources and the needs. And this gap is fulfilled by reuse. And by that, we are one of the highest efficiencies in the world. Moreover, we face demographic increase and also climate change challenges. And the most daunting challenge that we're facing, and that everybody is following, or the people interested in water are following now, is the upstream, unilateral upstream development. Accordingly, there was a necessity to practice water diplomacy at various levels. And here we can find that practicing hydro diplomacy per se is not easy. Adding to this complexity is having women in hydro diplomacy. Because we're practicing hydro diplomacy at the continental level through the African Council, the Ministers' Council on Water, the AMCAO, which is the ministerial as well as the technical level. We're discussing and we're negotiating the agenda of the African continent, the water agenda and the water Strategy 2030. We are also practicing hydro diplomacy under the African Union umbrella with the PIDA, the Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa. The Nile Basin Initiative, I think that all of us who are following the hydro diplomacy in Egypt, we know that the Nile Basin Initiative was established in 1999, and Egypt was one of the most positive contributors in the establishment of the NBI. And until in 2010, there was a unilateral signature of the Cooperative Framework Agreement, and by that Egypt had to freeze its participation in the Nile Basin Initiative, and many initiatives have been done in order to have once again all inclusiveness in the Nile Basin Initiative. Contributions in this have been done at the ministerial level, at the technical level, as well as at the heads of state level. And until now, we couldn't regain our participation in the NBI, although many proposals have been done in this regard. Over and above, we have to practice the hydro diplomacy at very complex level in the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. From Ministry of Water, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, also authorities involved in intelligence, heads of states, of course, and at the end that we are reaching the African Union and the Security Council, the UN Security Council. It's been 10 years now, and we're still struggling. So these are the main issues in which we are practicing hydro diplomacy. Also on the bilateral cooperation and regional cooperation as well, hydro diplomacy is practiced, as well as on the Islamic, Arabic, and the Mediterranean levels as well. We have here with us UFM, Mu'taz. He knows that we are doing a lot also in this regard. Accordingly, I was very pleased to participate with my colleagues in this work. I have interviewed, or I have exchanged the questionnaires with 15 of our colleagues working in the government, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, as well as my colleagues in the academia, in NGOs, and the independent consultants. Because I wanted to cover most of the water professionals or the people working in hydro diplomacy in Egypt. The respondents were 15, so I'm very glad that everybody have responded to this questionnaire. And the baseline showed that 50% of the respondents' age was between 40 and 49 years, with a work experience of 11 to 20 years. 63% of them are government employees, 44 hold master's degree, 31 PhD, and 25 a bachelor's degree. 38% of the participants hold a middle management position, and we find the highest ratio of male to female in the workspace was perceived by 38%, but on the other hand, the sum of the rest of the proposed male-female ratios was exceeding the half. It was 62%. So accordingly, the female represent a majority in the workplace of the respondents. So here we have to conclude. I'm very sorry, I'm taking more than my time, that there is a challenge. The challenge is the necessity to have sufficient knowledge of engineering, basics, principles of international water law, together with diplomatic and negotiation skills in order to practice hydro diplomacy. You can find it easily in Egypt very eminent women in the three fields: in engineering, in diplomacy, and in legal aspect as well. But it's very rare to find, like actually in most part of the world, it's very rare to find a woman leading negotiations in water diplomacy. So, but on the other side, we have an opportunity that the role of women in hydro diplomacy in Egypt is rapidly progressing. We have in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, 33% of the of the diplomats are female. The Ministry of Water Resources, 41% of the engineers are women, and 13% of them are leading high-level positions. Moreover, the Egyptian female professionals in the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation are engaged in many initiatives and networks aiming to build the capacity of women. And here I have to say that we had this very good initiative to have Nile Basin hydro diplomats, and also we have the ANWIN, the African Network Women for Infrastructure, under the African Union, and many other on the Arab level as well. Maybe Natasha will elaborate on this. And by this, I'm very sorry to be very long, but I'm ending by thanking you all and wishing you more contribution in the female water diplomacy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tahani. Thank you for presenting, all this, sharing all these insights. Shall we continue with Lebanon?
Good afternoon, everyone. I have the honor and pleasure to be with you today and to participate in Cairo Water Week. And Dr. Anthony and Natasha for making this happen, and Dr. Maysoon and Sharafat, and for their tremendous work. All of them are women engineers. I'm the only lady coming from communication and journalism background. So I'm going to talk about gender equality in theory and practice in Lebanon. And if you see that in the Lebanese constitution, it clearly states that all Lebanese are equal before the law without any distinction among them. All Lebanese, male and female, have the right to hold public office without any inclinations except for merits and capabilities. Lebanon, as you know, has ratified the CEDAW Convention and established the National Commission for Lebanese Women in 1998. However, Lebanon voiced fundamental articles of the convention, for instance, in matters dealing with citizenship laws and family laws. I'm a Lebanese, and if I want to marry a foreigner, I cannot transfer my nationality to my kids. However, if a foreigner woman married to a Lebanese guy, she can, after 1 year, she can get the citizenship. So the situation contradicts the principle of equality among all Lebanese. In September 2019, the government of Lebanon passed its first national action plan on UN Security Council 1325 on women, peace and security, with support from the United Nations in Lebanon. Lebanon ranks 145 out of 153 countries in the 2020 Global Gender Gap Report. Less than 5% of the total parliamentarian seats in Lebanon are now occupied by women. However, in the 2018 elections, we have seen a huge number of women candidates, but unfortunately, they wasn't able to make it to the parliament. In December 2016, the government of Prime Minister Hariri introduced a Ministry of State for Women Affairs, and the National Commission for Women and the State of Women Affairs were further mandated to protect and promote the rights of women, and have developed the National Strategy for Women in Lebanon for 2011 to 2021 and the National Action Plan 2017 until 2019 to mainstream gender equality. In 2016, in the government, we have 4 women ministers, And in 2020, we have 6 women ministers. However, this when we celebrated the formation of Ministry of Women Affairs, in the previous government, it was changed to Ministry of State for Economic Empowerment for Youth and Women. And this ministry was abolished in the newly formed government presided by Prime Minister Diab in 2020. And to give you more info about the gender gaps in Lebanon, there is a report for the USAID made an assessment. It identified the 6 sectors where there is a huge gap in gender equality: governance, workforce development, livelihoods, access to finance, water management, reforestation, and education. In the water sector specifically, the first time a Lebanese woman takes the Ministry of Energy and Water, and hence it was in January 2019. Nada Bustani Khouri, who was appointed as the new minister, had been an advisor to the Ministry of Energy and Water since 2010. So for 10 years, she has been an advisor. This appointment has opened the door for more women in decision-making level. Thus, 6 women, as you see in the picture, have participated in this caretaker government. Now it's a caretaker government presided by Prime Minister Hassan Diab. So now we have Defense Minister, woman, Displaced Minister, Justice Minister, Labor, Information, Sports, and Youth Minister. Regarding the findings of the basic mapping we already did in 2017, we made interviews, we disseminated the questionnaire, and we made in-person interviews. So most of the female professionals interviewed were between the 2 age groups of 30 to 39 and 40 plus. 67 of them are government employees. And as you see, they have different years of experience, from 1 to 11 years, 34%, 1 to 20 years, 33%, 21 years to 30 years, 33%. Although 89% of them holds a master's degree and are equally involved in senior management positions and are heads of departments, but not being part of the decision making. You can see a lot of advisors, but not the ministers in this sector. The highest perception of the ratio of male-female was less than 20% at government level, although this ratio was perceived to be higher by interviewees from intergovernmental organizations and universities. At the Ministry of Energy and Water, there are 7 women as head of departments, 3 women engineers as head of services within the water establishments, while most water quality officers and laboratory analysts are women. One of the interviewees emphasized that 3/4 of the minister's advisors are women, but they feel frustrated because they lack the political support to be promoted. For instance, the Minister of Energy, the former Minister of Energy and Water, wouldn't have been promoted if she wasn't in a political party, and she has a very political support. Thus, one of the main limiting factors in pushing women in our country is the male dominance patriarchal society. In terms of diplomacy, the interviewees believe that there's no difference between men and women. Having technical knowledge helps to build confidence in one's recommendation within an institution, which can then be used to inform interagency and interstate discussions. So is there hope? Of course, there's a glimpse of hope for capacity building for Lebanese women working in the water sector. Now there is an information and training center for water professionals. It's under construction. It will see the light soon. It will include a gender department. This center was launched in collaboration with Ministry of Energy and Water and the Union for Mediterranean, UFM. I will not go into the details of the comparative study because I will leave it to Natasha and later on. I would like to thank all my colleagues for their tremendous job, and for you at Cairo Water Week again for having this opportunity.
Thank you very much, May, for the insights from Lebanon. Let us move to Jordan. Maysoon, the floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm so happy and very honored to participate in this very important conference. Water is a big issue, and it's a security for countries. Women and men, they are both should be main player in this because. Yeah. So in my presentation, I will talk about only gender in water sector, because here in Jordan, women, you see them everywhere. We have good ministers, but still, I want to focus here about water because water is still considered as a male dominant, and which is not true, but this is how they see it, and that's why I will focus basically on women or female in water issues business. I will start first with the Jordan basic mapping. According to the study that we made 2 years ago, the result of this study is the highest percentage of female working in water-related issues was in the age of 40 to 49. The work experience less than 10 years, but here I want to tell that 10 years, it is not their experience 10 years, but it's the time that they spent working in water sector issue is 10 years. Some of them, they work in other fields and join the sector within the last decade. About 60% hold a bachelor's degree and above, some with less percentage, and majority, here you will see 2 years ago that the majority hold senior management position were like almost 60%. The highest ratio of male or female is 25 to 50%. Next slide, please. Now I will first talk about the overview of Jordan gender profile. According to the Jordan women, they constitute about 47.1% of the total population in Jordan. Although Jordan Human Development Index places it in the high human development category, its score on Gender Development Index, which is 147 out of 168, is low and points to the significant gender differences between women and men in health, knowledge, and living standards. Jordan, of course, ratified the revised Convention of Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which is CEDAW in 2007. CEDAW requires all signatories to eliminate discrimination against women in all areas of economic and social life. Next slide, please. I will focus and link women with the work and its economic participation only. So when we talk, we'll look at education and show how education is important. So with the study, we see that there is a positive correlation between education and economic participation, with 56% of the employed women holding a graduate or higher degree. Although among the unemployment, 22% of them are educated and hold an intermediate college or higher diploma. With the unemployment, definitely, unemployment in Jordan is ranked between 12 and 14%, approximately 11% for males and 20% for women. This is for over a decade, but you know these years and because of the COVID and what happens in the first quarter of 2020, the unemployment have reached 19.3%. And here it is 18.1 for male and 24.4 for female. I'd like here to tell that the two groups that are particularly affected are women at different ages and youth. Youth means men and women. The economic participation of women still it's very low. It's almost about 1/5 of the males. With women 17.7% versus 59.4% of the male. And according to World Bank study, there is also like 12.3% percentage rise to 17% in the private sector. Next slide, please. So in women's in political participation and representation, we're doing well here with the legislation. Women were granted the right for voting and candidacy for lower house and parliament, municipal and village councils since 1974 and 1982 respectively. In order to make sure also that political participation of women, the government took an affirmative action and amended the election law in 2003 to include a quota for women. Start with 6%, then it increased to 12%, 6 women increased to 12 women, and now it is 15 women. This is quota, but again, they can participate in competitive bidding and they can win. This is the quota only for this number. Again, also Jordanian laws address several issues related to women, such as maternity leave, providing a suitable place for children less than 4 years, prohibiting the termination of jobs for women who are 6 months pregnant and above, or during the maternity leave, prohibiting assigning tasks that are dangerous or threatening to women's health, and equal treatment of men and women with no discrimination, and lately, flexibility in working hour condition. It is this one, it's not only for women, but it helps women a lot. Again, despite many efforts directed toward enhancing women's role in the society and in the economy, there has been little progress in the women's economic participation. This is because the employer preference is based on gender stereotype and the heavy burden that labor legislation places on businesses to protect female employees, as well as social constraint on what type of job women they can do, and also the reproduction in the hiring process. But I always say, if you are put more legislation to protect men, this could be also a way that will be negative to women participation. Not all the very good thing is good in reality. So next please. Next slide, please. Now I'll talk about women in water sector. Now, according to the study that is done recently by the USAID, 11% of the total employee in water sector are women. They hold 17.5% of leadership and supervision position. And if you compare it in the past, they were more than this. But this is a bad signal that the percentage of women in the leadership and supervision position is increasing. 39% of the total employees holding the first university degree and above. Now I want to tell that it's not, in the water sector, we have a lot of technicians, a lot of labor. So when we said 39% of the total employees are women, having this high is very good. Still, the perception in the water sector entities are characterized by masculinity, and it is a male domain. This is due to this nature. They claim, it is the nature of work and the task requires or needs men. I'm totally against this, but this is how the culture, they said, when it comes to water ministry or anything with water and other type of job, they remember, it's women and they cannot do it. Although we had a very good example of women that they manage the water sector at different level perfectly, and we still remember their names. Again, despite the percentage, which is for me is also a good percentage with 17.5% in the leadership and supervision, but till now in Jordan, almost zero reach. It's only person, and I'm that person. I managed to be Secretary General for water sector, and it was like I finished 2012, and since then, unfortunately, I thought at that time I paved the road for the women, and I, thanks God, showed a good example of women in this position. So I thought, a lot will follow me, but unfortunately, until now, and I hope, it will happen. Nothing now; it's not repeated until now. I will stop here, and I will be happy to receive questions if there is, to answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Meishu. Very much appreciated. Sharafat, the floor is yours for the case of Morocco.
Yes, thank you, Auntie. Good afternoon, everybody. It's really an honor. I'm very happy and very glad to be part of this amazing team and contribute also to this challenging work. Maybe the only country in the Maghreb side with different challenges, with a different context that I can to show you some input and some insight in the for the Moroccan case. The Morocco next excuse me. Morocco has taken substantial steps to establish parity and equality between men and women. Many advances in the women's rights have been achieved at the legislative level, at constitutional level, starting by the constitution of Moroccan Constitution of 2011, which recognized the full women's rights and guarantee equal protection and enjoyment of its laws for both men and women. The Article 19 stipulates that the men and women enjoy in equality rights and freedom of civil, economic, social, cultural, and environmental character. The same article showed that the state work for the realization of parity between men and women, an authority of parity, and the struggle against all forms of discrimination is created to this effect. The law organizing this authority has been voted in the parliament, but this institution doesn't sitting up yet. At the next please. At the legislative framework, we have achieved many reforms that allow and promote the role of women in political level, in civil level, and in administrative level, starting by the reforms of electoral code in 2002. That law allow for the first time the women access to the parliament for the first time in 2002. Now we are almost 20.5% in the representative house. I mean the main parliament, the first house for the election in 2016. The labor code also voted in 2003 introduced the non-discrimination in access to employment. The same law prohibits sexual harassment in the workplace and increase also the duration of maternity to 14 weeks. In 2004, we have adopted also a civil family code, which secured the important right of women, of Moroccan women, and managing the relationship between husband and wife as the same level. The Moroccan Nationality Code, I am very proud to announce that maybe we are the only or the few Arab country that who are amended the nationality the law of nationality, which allows a child born to a foreign father and a Moroccan mother to benefit from Moroccan citizenship. In 2018, the Morocco have lifted the reservation in the Convention of Elimination all forms of discrimination against women. I mean by that, CEDAW. We have adopted also in 2017 the law that organizing the authority of parity and struggle against all forms of discrimination against women. But we are looking to setting up this authority to manage this promoting work inside institution. In 2018, the Parliament also voted the law to combat violence against women. I mean, we have a very important achievement at the legislative framework. Also, in the public policy, many plan and many strategies have been adopted and setting up that promote the role of women in the decision-making position, such as the government equality plan that introduced the gender-sensitive strategy in many ministerial departments, the gender sensitive public finance also, which introduced the managing public finance and managing by budget by taking into account the gender sensitive. And also recently we have the government have adopted a plan for economic empowerment for women and girls, especially in the rural area. And maybe the crisis of COVID-19 show us a huge message to learn and to take into account in building public policy. This progress and these achievements, unfortunately, as a part of the Arab countries, or as a part of the MENA region, this progress remains fragile, and there is a gap between laws and text, and between reality and practice, especially due to the social, cultural, and economic barriers. As a country with the dominance of patriarchal societies, just like other my friend in the other countries, Lebanon and Jordan and Egypt, maybe we have the same challenges. Is that it's how to change mentality, how to introduce a new insights inside society, or how to raise our new generation with the equality value, with the parity value, with the same value between men and women. In the decision making position, unfortunately, the chiffres, the number at a little bit disappointed. We have in the government institution 34.5 women and 65.5% men, but only we have 11.8 in decision making position. Why? I don't know. This is the challenge. What maybe we should to work on, to increase the women in the high decision making position, not to be just a part in this body, but to influence, to impact the public policy, and to build a equal public policy that can benefit men and women in the same time. Women in the water sector. Water sector is a sector with strong masculine domination. Why? Because the men are very dominated in engineering sector. Just like the same finding as other country, we have a real strong domination for the men in the engineering. We have chosen a sample with 45 respondents, including all the institutions and all the ministerial department who are involved in the water sector. Maybe we have 10 or 11 institutions are involved in water sector. But the most amazing finding that more than 80% of them have a master's degree, engineering degree, diploma, or PhD. I mean, they are very high qualified in the sector. They have very huge background in the sector. And of course, the public institution remain the most attractive for women because of the security, because of equality in treatment in terms of salary. The highest ratio of male and women in the workplace was between 25 and 50% in the government institution, but in the private sector, they still have more effort to achieve, to balance the percentage of men and women in the private sector. Despite the high qualification of women interviewed, only 90% are in top management, while 80% of them still in the middle management or outside of any decision-making position. And this is the real contradiction between the situation and between the qualification, the women qualification, and between the position they lead. We need the more effort to balance the high in the decision-making position between men and women. I'm going to show a very successful work that we have launched when I was at the head of water minister in 2015. We have launched with the support of UN Women, the strategy of institutionalizing the gender approach in the water sector. Really, we had a very, very resistance to be accepted by all the staff. And I remember when directors told me the gender is the last hair in my head. That means it's something really not challenging for them. It's something just, as we say in French, la souris sur le gâteau. I don't know what is the real traduction in English, but something really, really banal. But we try to accompany this changing of the mentality. At the end of the project, all of them, they saw what that means gender. Gender that don't mean what women, but that gender that means equality, equal access to the benefits of water managing. This strategy aims to contribute the Moroccan effort to ensure gender equality in public policies by focusing on three objectives. First of all, the integration of gender sensitivity in the human resources by adopting the equal opportunities regarding the access to the decision-making position. I want to say here, after the end of the process, we had many women in the decision-making position, not high of them, but middle and low position. The second objective is the mainstreaming gender equality in water action plan by introducing the gender in the action plan, especially for access to water and sanitation services in the rural area, in the school, by building facilities for women and facilities for men, or for girls and for boys also in the rural area. And this was one the reason of abandoning school for the girls in the rural area. The third objective is the adoption of the water legislative more inclusive by amending the water law, which we had introduced the gender in this law, and we had increased the participation of women association in governance body at the local level. I mean the water diplomacy, but at the local level, we increase the participation of women farmers, of associated with women, female associated in the governance body. I want to show you some pictures. We had now the launching of the institutionalizing the gender water sector with the support of UN Women, and one of the findings also that the water law that allow for some female to be police women to control the use of water resources at the local level. It was really amazing and promising sector. I want just to conclude my contribution that as a Maghreb, we have to approach the water diplomacy differently than the Middle East, because in the Maghreb we don't have a real big challenge or big deal in transboundary water. All the main resources are generated and delivered inside the countries. We can adopt approach by resolving local conflicts between users. Morocco and Algeria and Tunisia are living recently a very strong drought, and that drought increased the tension and the conflicts between users. We can learn from the experience of the Middle East managing the transboundary water, and to translate this approach to resolving conflicts between users in the time of water scarcity, on time of lake water, and sharing benefits and optimizing the risk of water. And this is what I want to achieve in our work, is to build a new approach, water diplomacy related to local tension and local conflict. Thank you so much, my friend. I'm so sorry if I take more time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharafat. Let us proceed with the state of Palestine. And Natasha is going to drive us through also the comparative part of the study. So, Natasha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Auntie. Let's just run through the next slide. Okay, I will just quickly go through the different slides and just highlight the key points on the status of women and gender in Palestine. In the latest statistics published by the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics on women and men, what is interesting to see, if you look at the right side, you will see the percentages for the women is basically in wine red color. You'll see that women are mostly the ones that are holding the traditional basically professions. We're talking about teachers, technicians, the clerks. If we look at the public sector, we have a higher percentage of women. In terms of legislation, in 2017, we had 11.3% members of the PLC that were women, and around 6% of the ambassadors to the state of Palestine are also women. Next. Similar to the case of Lebanon, the Palestinian Ministry of Women's Affairs is the main national machinery for women. It was, although it was established back in 2003, following the establishment, gender units were set in different ministries. And although in 2018 there were 24 gender units in both ministries and non-ministerial government institutions, however, these were marginalized, and these continue to face major challenges. The Ministry of Women Affairs to date has had 3 cross-sectoral national gender strategies, and has also developed a gender-responsive budgeting national committee in 2013. Next, please. In line with that, there's also a national committee for gender, which is made up both of male and female, and it includes both governmental and non-governmental stakeholders. And through the collaboration with the UNESCO Gender Policy Institute, with the Ministry of Women Affairs, a series of in-depth studies were done, and that all concluded in the establishment of the first gender policy focused institute as an autonomous entity that was issued to a government degree in Palestine and in the whole Arab region. Next, please. In line with basically, the endorsement of the UN Security Resolution 1325 by the President, an independent commission was established, and this independent commission came up with a framework for a national strategy that looks into the implementation of the UNSC Resolution 1325, which also developed along with the strategy an action plan. Next. If we look at the legislative frameworks, they are existing similar to what you have seen in the other 4 Arab countries. So the Palestinian Declaration of Independence affirms equality. The Basic Law enshrines basic equality. Palestine has also acceded to CEDAW. And in terms of political representation, then the Palestinian law largely conforms to international standards regarding women's participation. Next. In terms of women leadership in water, in collaboration with the GIZ, in 2011, a situation analysis was conducted for women in the water and solid waste management sectors in Palestine. The study basically found out that in spite of the presence of qualified women, similar to what basically our mapping exercises have shown, they remain an untapped potential due to gender-based biases, including their own perceptions. This situation analysis led to recommendations at 3 levels: the policy, the professional, and the community. And based on this work, a gender strategy in the environment was developed for 2013-2017 with 3 main axes and 9 strategic objectives. Next. For the purposes of our mapping, the results were very similar to those that were found for the other 4 countries. Basically, the highest percentage is for the age group of 30-39. We're talking about experiences of 11 and 20 years. 50%, again, are government employees, and 2/3 of the respondents hold a master's degree and are in management positions. Next. So 3 years onward, after the first mapping, and this was mentioned by Anthony in terms of the methodology that was adopted towards the countries that were part of the first mapping. For Palestine, it seems that although the respondents had actually had capacity building, but it was mostly a personal initiative. And those that were given more responsibilities, with the exception of the one that is working for an international organization, were neither promoted nor had their salaries adjusted. So in terms of the areas that are still lacking for the empowerment of women in water diplomacy, many of the constraints that were identified in the first mapping were reiterated. However, new elements were brought to our attention, which included the lack of studies and research on the relationship between women and water diplomacy and the manipulation of those opportunities to the benefit of a selected group. All of these experts emphasized that there would be a need to have more women in decision-making. Next. So if we look at the 5 mapping exercises that were done, we have some very common elements that most of the women are working in the government sector. The majority have either secondary or tertiary degrees, and their experiences, at the minimum is between 11 to 20 years. Next, so that brings us to the second part of our study, which is the comparative study. So what we've done is that we've looked at the factors that actually lead to a higher male to female ratio in the workplace. And by comparing the 5 countries, there was a commonality that those that marked the highest factors were a male-dominant society and the lack of policy and legal frameworks. However, in reality, in some of those countries, and as you've seen with the profiling, it is not actually the absence of policies, but the lack of their implementation and their low level of enforcement. Next, please. The second level of comparison was looking into the factors that actually affect the attainment of decision-making positions in the 5 countries. The first was the lack of opportunity. While opportunities did exist, however, they were biased towards men. The second factor was the lack of support from peers. And the third one was the lack of comprehensive skills. Obviously not in terms of technical skills, but the combination of the managerial, legal, and all of the other skills that characterize those in positions that are sought by women water experts. Next, please. Another level of comparison was at the level of what skills were identified by the respondents as needed for water diplomacy-related positions. In all 5 countries, high on the list were diplomatic and international skills and the need to acquire a better knowledge of related legal instruments. Next, please. Next. And the final level of comparison, which is very important, was the definition of water diplomacy in these 5 respective countries. Most of the respondents agreed that for them, water diplomacy is seen as a high-level dialogue among states, and the general understanding that it is basically transboundary water diplomacy. However, in Morocco, there's more of a consensus that this high-level dialogue is among users, and hence it is looked upon more as a tool for people's diplomacy to reach common understandings among sectors and users. And this differentiation is very important because the definition of water diplomacy and how is it used, it reflects the hydropolitical context and the experience of the specific countries. So I leave it up to here, and the floor is yours, Anthony.
Thank you very much, Natasha. Thank you very much, ladies. for this impressive, presentation. Our apologies to our, participants for taking a bit longer than, what is indicated in the agenda. There is always desire, to share the findings and share them, what has been the context of this line of work. So I think that is probably, a little bit overwhelming. We would like to see if there are any pressing questions addressed to our five speakers, basically to the country baselines. Let me see. I know that there were a few comments that were shared in the chat box. I wonder if there is any pressing question that you would like to have it clarified, or if there is anything that the speakers can contribute with in terms of additional information.
Anthi, I think it would be a good idea if we keep the questions last, because some of our panelists might have to leave.
Okay, well, we will take note of all the questions. This is definitely the case. And if there is no time to go into detail into that, definitely, bilaterally, we can always get back to the participants. In this case, then, without any further ado, let us get into the panel exchanges. And welcome the moderator of the panel, Evangelos Kostadianos, who is the Executive Secretary of GWP Med. Maybe just to conclude our part of the session, saying that we do have plans for the future as next steps in terms of the comparative study. There are different components. There is a technical part that will see deepening into the countries that we have already covered, asking also for the perspectives of male respondents, so we can have a bit of a more gender approach, and also expand into more countries of the region. There has been already some, requests expressed from Tunisia and Algeria, and also our objective is also to have a very strong and parallel capacity building and mentorship side. So with this in mind, we would very much like to hear from our panelists how they see this initiative and how we can work together. Vangeli, the floor is yours.
Very much to all of you, each and every one, for the great presentations and the excellent work done. I have to tell you that in parallel, right now, the opening session of the GWP network meeting is taking place, the global network meeting, and there is a lot of conflict by a few colleagues that cannot participate in both sessions. Actually, some of the colleagues that have joined this session have moved into the GWP session, and they were complaining why these are taking place, because this is a very rich, information that we have provided, and they were complaining of the conflict. Of course, we know we cannot do anything else given the set agenda of the Cairo Water Week. So thank you very much again. The time is very short. Let me turn immediately to our panelists, starting with Mr. Almotaz Abadi, the Managing Director of the Union for the Mediterranean. Almotaz, how we can strengthen this initiative on the role of women in water diplomacy in MENA?
Thank you very much, Vangelis, for this. I am the Almotaz Abadi, the Managing Director of Water at the Union for the Mediterranean. And I am very pleased to be with you all here. Just to start my intervention, one note, 25% of this panel is men. So we are progressing so far, okay? So this is very positive to start with. And in the Union for the Mediterranean, as it's evidence for everybody to start with, the women empowerment and civil society empowerment is in the DNA of the Union for the Mediterranean, to start with. And this was reflected in the multi-sectoral approach of the Union for the Mediterranean by having a specific also ministerial declaration on the woman role in the economic and enhancing the socio-economic and political life in the Mediterranean. And when it comes to your specific question to the water sector, if we look at the water ministerial in 2017, which is the most recent, as well as its two main products, the strategy, the UFM policy framework of action 2030, as well as the water agenda and its financial strategy, they emphasized on the multi-stakeholder approach and inclusion of all segments of civil society into the development agenda in the Mediterranean when it comes to the water issue, and to do it on integrated water resource management approach. If you want to be integrated, you need to engage all the segment of the civil society and the society itself. Absolutely, I don't know how it's all civil society. And if you ignore the 50% of the society, then you are not going anywhere. So, but to acknowledge the situation, we know that there is a problem, and the problem should be solved. And the problem is not stated by myself, it's stated by the aforementioned speakers coming from 5 countries. They had stated it clearly that there is an issue. From the Union for the Mediterranean Water perspective, we noticed that when it comes to the water sector, the sector suffers from 2 things. The perception of women themselves that they cannot do something in the water sector, as well as suffer from the stereotyping of the other part of the society, which is us, the male, that women cannot do it. And to start with this, you need to think about how to kill the perception and how to eliminate the stereotyping. And this should be done through awareness. And this is why we said that if you want to empower everybody, you need to aware them from the first beginning. So there is a lot of issue need to be done at the awareness, curriculum, education part, and to direct also the woman and the youth in order to not hesitate to be a water engineer or wastewater engineer or a diplomat in the water sector, and to be courageous to take their role that they were created to do. From the stereotyping part, absolutely, this is related not only that it's to jeopardize and to keep the situation, it's a normal procedure. Also, it needs to be eliminated by putting on place a good policy framework of action and recommendation, and to start with this, to put quota. Quota is not good. We need to end this quota, but at first we have to start increasing putting quotas in order to engage women into different managerial aspect, as well as the policy and decision making in the water sector, as well as in other sectors.
Thank you very much, Almotaz, and we look forward in applying all this in the UFM water agenda, where gender is a clear orientation pertaining to all thematic areas, and of course, financial strategy. With that, let me turn to Ms. Stephanie Shaban, Regional Advisor on Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment in ESCWA. Let me ask you to keep your intervention, if possible, at 3 minutes, because the time is really short. We have taken a little more time from the organizers, but still is very tight. So, Stephanie, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for inviting ESCWA to this event. It is always great to hear about advances made by women in this region, including efforts to challenge discriminatory norms and practices. ESCWA is one of the 5 regional commissions of the UN Secretariat. In the region, we support member states through policy advice. We serve as a platform for discussion and consensus building. We serve as a hub for regional knowledge, and this is also a point of assembly for stakeholders working on equitable and sustainable development in the Arab region. In this vein, we work closely with international regional organizations, including the League of Arab States. Just to give a quick overview of the type of work that we're doing related to the intersection of water security and women's involvement. Actually, I think someone might have their microphone on. If they can be turned off, please. ESCWA is currently working on climate change and natural resource sustainability. And this includes hosting the Arab Center for Climate Change Policies. This also includes a regional initiative for the assessment of climate change impacts on water resources and socioeconomic vulnerability in the Arab region, also known as RECAR. We work with a number of individuals to build their capacity to serve as climate change negotiators. We have a 10-year experience assisting negotiators build their capacity to work in climate change negotiations, and this includes several women who have served as outspoken leaders, and several have engaged in the Paris Principles, and this can be expanded to water diplomacy. Furthermore, we're seeing a number of young women interested in expanding their water expertise. So through the African Young Waters Professional Forum, the majority of individuals from the Arab region are actually women. So in this vein, we see intersection with the work of the ESCWA Center for Women. The ESCWA Center for Women, while not directly engaged in water diplomacy, we do engage in the framework of UN Security Council Resolution 1325 and the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, which I'm happy to hear is referenced in this meeting. The agenda stresses the importance of women's equal participation and full involvement in all efforts for the maintenance and promotion of security. And as everyone in this meeting knows, water, particularly in this region, is a women, peace, and security issue. And this was also made relevant or made more evident symposium we had in 2018, again, which was referenced, and many of the individuals on the panels attended this symposium we had on women and water security for peace building in the Arab region. The symposium highlighted some of the key water security issues facing the region and the various roles that women are playing to address these concerns. Another framework that we work under is the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Under CEDAW, which does not directly reference water security, but under the General Recommendation 37, there is mention of the gender-related dimensions of risk reduction in the context of climate change and calls for women's leadership in climate-related policy development and response. And we also have General Recommendation number 30, which calls upon women in conflict prevention, conflict and post-conflict situations, and draws a direct link to the Women, Peace and Security Agenda. And finally, we work with Agenda 2030 and the SDGs, primarily SDG 5 on gender equality. Under this SDG, we have 5.5, which seeks to ensure women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all decision-making levels. And this intersects also with SDG 6, specifically 6.5 on integrated water resources management at all levels. With this background, I give you simply to show that there's definitely a cross-cutting concern and amongst the women in water diplomacy in the MENA region actions, and that ESCWA's work could easily support and cultivate these activities. In terms of synergies, as I mentioned earlier, ESCWA supports a number of climate change negotiators. That model could be transposed onto water diplomacy, specifically water diplomacy and women diplomats or negotiators. ESCWA also works with AwareNet, the Arab Water Resources Management Network, which could also be targeted directly to diplomats, women water negotiators, and that can also build their capacity, their professional capacity in diplomacy and negotiations. The Center for Women works specifically under the rubric of Women, Peace and Security, and this includes trainings on the agenda to member states. Therefore, there is scope to introduce a water diplomacy angle specific to this region in the trainings that we do with member states. And furthermore, we member states on developing national action plans under the Women, Peace and Security rubric. And that can also involve the opportunity to ensure that water diplomacy is addressed within these national action plans because they are targeting women's involvement in peace and security. So I'll leave that there. And just to let you know that ESCWA is interested in this topic and that we would be willing to support and help in a way.
Definitely. Thank you so much for giving us the spectrum of activities in ESCWA, but also giving us the big picture, because you have mentioned so many lines of works, initiatives, and references that definitely don't include water right now, but maybe water can be, how can I say it, appraised in order to become a case or an area where all these initiatives and work streams can focus on going beyond water, going beyond climate, but also presenting the interlinkages. So thank you very much for this. With that, let me turn, Marwan, forgive me for giving the floor before to Dr. Tessa Terpstra, who is the MENA Regional Envoy for Water and Energy Security and Chancellor for the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Tessa, to you.
Yes, thank you very much, and sorry to Marwan. I have another engagement, I'm afraid. So thanks for this super interesting and important. Maybe I should use the mic. Important presentation. To be very honest, I hadn't realized the magnitude of this issue and the breadth of work that has been done so far. I would like to say three things. What I find really interesting about the presentations across the board is that all the women who have undertaken these surveys address this women in diplomacy from a very wide social angle, talking about the social and legal context of women and the position of women in their society. And I think this is interesting because it shows that it's the women's empowerment, whether it's in water diplomacy or elsewhere, is a very broad issue. And in my country, which is the Netherlands, that would not be different. So I think this is something that we share among each other and is something that we can work towards. Now, two things about peace negotiations. So water and peace and women as mediators and peace negotiators, and women in water in general. About peace negotiations, research has shown that women, whenever women are part of negotiating a peace agreement or conflict mediation, the agreements that are reached are more likely to stand beyond 5 years. And there's clear evidence about this, and therefore extremely important to include more women in peace negotiations and conflict mediation. And I think the suggestions that were being done both by in your initiative and by UNESCO, as Stephanie just shared with us, are very important, I think, in increasing diplomatic skills of women, and just don't wait to get the signal or instructions, but just let's prepare ourselves better. So all for it. And the other issue, more the general empowerment of women in the water sector, I completely agree that we should look at quota. I think this really helps to just create a reality of more women in higher positions, in decision-making positions in the water sector. And I recall an anecdote of one of our alumni from the IHE Water Center in the Netherlands, Water Institute, here in Jordan, a female mid-management or mid-level manager at the Ministry of Water and Irrigation, who publicly said to her Secretary General that indeed there are so many female engineers working in the Ministry of Water, but they do not go beyond the so-called glass ceiling. So I think there is a lot to be done there, and indeed, all for quota. Thanks for that suggestion by the previous speaker. So I'll leave it at there. Thank you.
Thank you, Tessa, also for giving us such a everyday example, the unfortunate way. The leadership of Netherlands in the region is and worldwide on water issues and on climate, of course, is so important, and we very much look forward to your further engagement in this line of work. So thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Marwan, then I'm turning to you. Marwan Al-Ragad, Executive Director of the Inter-Islamic Network of Water Resources Development and Management, last but not least.
Thank you so much, Vangelis, and I'm really happy to meet this elite group of innovative and inspiring women from our region. And in my opinion, you are fixing the foundation for shared responsibility and gender equality in water diplomacy and management, despite the very little resources and the very little research and literature available about this issue. Personally, I learned under the leadership of Engineer Maysoon Zabi during her service at the Ministry of Water and Irrigation, and I do appreciate the effort by her at the golden age of the ministry, I will say. So, because of time limitation, I will move forward toward the way forward as we see it at NWARDAM. At NWARDAM, we have our non-traditional perspective toward water diplomacy, which consider disputes at different levels. Through this perspective or the approach, we aim to enhance regional understanding and to consider the intranational disputes among users and cities. So we consider building cohesion among Syrian refugees and local water users in Jordan as a water diplomacy. Also, trade-offs of industry and irrigation is also considered as water diplomacy. Releasing stresses between local community in rural areas and the governmental sector is also water diplomacy. So the complexity of this issue needs empowerment at different levels. So we need to find new means, I think, to achieve an evidence-based policy making. And here we see the high potential of empowering women through academia, considering the fact that female scholars can contribute to initiate this movement. Also, we see a very high opportunity through the global demand of a big scale or a basin scale water energy food mixers where women can contribute positively to building confidence and to build peaceful use of water resources. As most of the governments in the meantime, they are seeking to enhance the public-private sector partnership, the PPP. And here we can see a high potential for women empowerment as private sector is more open to that issue. And this is simply because the private sector sees the high potential and the high value and good management practices by women. But more importantly, we should believe in diversity of water diplomacy actors and water management players. And we always consider diversity and inclusion for sustainable water management. As for the way forward, we see high demand on enabling policies and legal frameworks to increase gender equality in water decision making. We also see a high demand for an educational reform in many countries in the region to allow more gender balanced education in science, technology, innovation, and international relations as a supporting arm for water diplomacy. Last but not least, we believe that women can play a major role through media and press, as we believe at NWARDAM, in the importance of having media arm for any water diplomacy initiative. From the region, we have very good examples, and we have here with us Ms. Maya Sayer as a very active water diplomat from the media domain. And I personally in contact with two active female journalists in Jordan, Rima Rawashda, Iman al-Faris, who are playing a major role in delivering rich material in a very simple way in water diplomacy and water management aspects through press and through social media. The three ladies managed to educate thousands of social media users over the last few months. Such effort enhances the understanding of community to water challenges, water diplomacy, and the importance of water diplomacy to bring people to a point of confidence and to have common platform for everyone. Also, it enhanced the water citizenship in different regions, which is very vital to achieve sustainable water management. And finally, we believe in the change in our region, and we believe in the shared responsibility as the only way to sustainable water management. And thank you so much.
Marwan, I cannot summarize. Sure, you have put forward so many important keywords that relate to the role of women in water diplomacy. All of them in an integrated manner, also putting emphasis on the media as a very important partner for moving this agenda forward. Maybe the next session we're going to have, not waiting for a year until the Cairo Water Week, but before, could be in at least some of these. So thank you so much for all the great contributions. I'm passing it directly to Natasha and Nancy for the conclusion. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Evangeli, for facilitating the panel exchanges. That has been so rich. It's such a pity. I mean, we could have taken so much more time actually listening and getting, deeper and digging into your brains and your experience and benefiting from this. So why don't we actually fix another appointment and be able to benefit from this? There has been, such in such short time, such wealth of information. We are extremely delighted that it seems like what is happening is timely, is needed, is very much at the focus of attention, and it also can benefit. So there are many elements, that make it something that, we are committed and determined to see through. Going a little bit through the different points that the panelists have shared, there is a lot of space for synergies because there's a lot that is being done, and either to enlarge it in order to include the people involved in this initiative, the network, or to tailor something slightly different that responds to the specific needs of this group. But in all cases, it seems like this is actually there, and we're extremely happy that there is this reach out, and it will be possible to benefit from what is happening within your respective institutions at the moment. For us, in terms of next steps, let us share that we are currently finalizing, retouching a little bit, the comparative study, which we will be very happy to share once everything is set. And then, as I mentioned earlier before, actually the panel interventions, we do have a rather clear, let's say, action plan on what comes next. So this is going to take the form of both further technical work and then hands-on support to the network, to this community of practice, in order to respond to what the ladies have requested. So it is not something that we're discussing at a theoretical level. The point is to be able to respond to very specific needs and, in fact, make the difference and contribute to strengthening the women in water diplomacy, starting with the low-hanging fruits, and then be able to expand further. We do have several capacity-building activities under preparation, and of course we will communicate them in due time. Well, I don't know, Natasha, would you like to offer any final reflections before we thank our participants?
Yes, I mean, thank you to all the panelists for their valuable contribution. I think, at my end, the takeaways from the interventions of the panelists also offer, opportunities that possibly, would need to be included in this initiative. So, Dr. Marwan talked about the media. Stephanie talked about the gender aspect. So, it's very promising in a sense that basically, this initiative and the empowerment of women can actually, be taken through different sectors and different interventions. So that also, makes a wider spectrum, and it offers more opportunities, coming for the empowerment, not just from the water sector, but also from the other related sectors that are clearly very important for water diplomacy. So thank you for our panelists. And as Antti said, time is short. We would really like to take you up on your suggestions, and hopefully we will be able to take it forward in another important brainstorming session. And last but not least, again, would like to thank, the organizers of the Cairo Water Week for giving us this opportunity, for being the platform from which we actually launch this initiative publicly in the Arab world. Thank you for everyone and for the participants for joining.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Natasha. It is very important for us to have these synergies. So having our esteemed panelists together with us, it gives a very strong signal. So we are counting on that, and we are going to get back to you with more, discussion and to follow up this initiative. We are committed and determined, and I'm saying it and I'm saying it again as a team to see this through. So you will hear back from us. We are here to stay, for sure. And with that, may I kindly ask maybe all of us to switch on our cameras and have a very, one of those lovely family photos so we can all, keep and cherish. Let us go into the gallery, the great view. I hope it's working for everybody. I seem to be having a limited view of what's happening, but I'll try to take as many photos as I can. Just bear with me for 1 second.
Smile, Martin, smile.
Too shiny, the sun here is too strong.
Okay. I hope I have done something which, is going to be relatively decent. So we can have and remember. Okay, all right then. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much once again. See you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.